Welcome back to my vlog. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I have a really cool, interesting story to tell y'all. And those of you that live in Kenya are wondering why this is a cool, interesting story, because most Kenyans go to boarding school, especially for high school. But then, you know, living in the USA, I realized boarding school is not a common thing. It's not something that people go to. It's actually something that you go to if your parents just don't want you around. I'm sorry if you're in boarding school right now in America. But whenever I watch movies, that's the deal. Like, very rich people will be like, I'm just gonna send Johnny to the boarding school so we can have time to travel and work and do whatever we want to do. And they send you to like this Catholic boarding school, and it ends up being the worst experience of little Johnny's life, and he grows up to be like a serial killer or something. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. But anyways, back to what we were saying. So today I'm going to tell you the story of how I went to boarding school in Kenya and what that was like. But before we get started, I would like to introduce myself. If this is your first time watching this video, if it's not, I'm sorry, you have to keep hearing me say this. But if it's your first time, welcome to my vlog. My name is Lisa Kinoti. I am a singer and songwriter, originally from Nairobi, Kenya. I love both, but living in the, actually I live in the USA, and I actually do love both countries, the USA and Kenya. So don't make me choose. I feel like I'm a citizen of both countries. Hence the whole differences in stories that I tell here, so people in the US can see what it was like growing up in Kenya, and people in Kenya can see what it's like living in the USA. And I just feel like I keep everybody together. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, the other thing I would like to tell you is a lot of my American friends call me Lisa Kinoti, and my Kenyan friends call me Lisa Kinoti. I like to bring this up because that's another thing. Like, whenever I call myself Lisa Kinoti in front of my Kenyan friends and family, like, actually now this is an ongoing joke with me and my cousin. I'm not gonna say his name. You know who I'm talking about. You know I'm talking about you. You know, it's like he'll spell Lisa Kinoti with an R instead of a T, and he's like Lisa, aka Kinoti. But it's just the differences in accents, y'all. So I just always like to throw it out there. You know, sometimes I'll call myself Kinoti, and sometimes I call myself Kinoti. It just depends on the situation where I am and who I am talking to. But back to what I was gonna tell you guys. So I went to boarding school in Kenya, and it was not bad.
Turn around. Bend over. Now will you tell me what you were really up to?
We have. Sorry.
You know, for those of you who live in the USA and you've seen boarding school on movies, and it's usually like a really strict Catholic school, and you have the nun with the whip. Okay, well, they had whips. It wasn't a Catholic school, but they had whips. But, you know, it's not as bad as Hollywood makes it seem. I promise you it's not. So, you know, as you're sitting there and you're watching me through your device of choice, and you are looking at me sitting here in my black top, I have like this picture frame of New York behind me. It's like a street and a building in New York. I think it says Flatiron, New York. And you see my unique red piano. Like, who paints that piano red? I do. And you have those little trinkets sitting on top of the piano, and you're looking around, you're looking at me, and this is your first time watching this. You're like curious. You're like, what is she about to tell me? Trust me, you're gonna enjoy this. I encourage you to watch it to the end. And as you realize how much you've enjoyed this video, you're going to watch more of these videos. You're going to enjoy them. It's going to brighten up your day. And you're going to click on subscribe so that you can get more and more of these videos. Anyways, so I did not go to boarding school for, if you're British and Kenyan or from East Africa, which was British colony, you call it primary school. In America, it's broken up into like elementary and middle school, and I don't know what else. Whatever comes before high school was not boarding school for me. But in Kenya, after that, most of the high schools are boarding schools. So if you don't go to boarding school in Kenya, you're the weird one. Like in the US, if you tell your friends you went to boarding school, they're like, what? like, did your parents not want you? And they're like, oh, you know. But you know, in Kenya it's the opposite. If you tell your friends you never went to boarding school, they're like, oh, how are you gonna relate to us? Like, you don't even know what that's like, you know. So it's a really cool concept to think about, which is why I wanted to talk about this. But anyway, so after high school, you know, during high school you get to pick what school you get to go to, and it's not a guarantee you're gonna go there. You get to apply to different schools, and then you got that huge examination or test or whatever, you know, at the end of it. We call them finals in the USA. And then if you do well, then you can pretty much go to any of the schools you picked. If you did semi well, the schools actually pick you. If you didn't do well, if you did not do well, nobody picks you, and you're just like, oh. Okay. So anyway, so I'm not gonna say I was the smartest cookie in the bunch. Maybe I was like a B student, maybe you could say that. B plus. I was an A. So I didn't get to go to the #1 school that I picked, which was Kenya High. I wanted to go to Kenya High, and I wanted to go to State House. But you know, in retrospect, I'm really thankful because I got to go to Kaaga Girls High School. We call it KG in Meru, Kenya, which was closer to my grandma because Meru is the place that my actual family comes from originally. So it was nice to be amongst my people, and then at the same time I grew up in this city, so it was good to be immersed in the actual countryside that my family came from. And also Kaaga Girls was a great experience. It was a wonderful experience. I couldn't change it. If I had to go back and change it, I would not change it. I would go back to the same school. We had the coolest principal at that time. I don't know who the principal is right now. You know, I had the best teachers. I mean, I had the best schoolmates. It was fun. But I'll tell y'all something. The whole boarding school experience, the first day was, I don't know what word to use. In America, if we don't know how to describe something, we say interesting. It was interesting. Interesting here doesn't mean positive or negative. It's just something you can't describe. So we're gonna go into it. So we have what we call homesick. I think Americans use that word too. That's the first thing that hits you when you go to boarding school. I don't care how much your parents got on your nerves when they try to tell you what to do and you just want to run away from home. When you go to boarding school, you're gonna get homesick. I don't care if you come from the best or the worst environment ever. You are going to be homesick because you're in a totally different environment, and you're just like, oh my gosh, okay, new people I've never seen. I gotta figure out who these people are. I gotta learn these people. New rules, new environment, new everything. So my first day at boarding school, you know, my parents, they pull up. It was like a 4-hour drive, I think. That's how far I was from home. And then we pull up at school, and it's beautiful. And I'm gonna see if I can post pictures of Kaaga Girls on here while I'm talking about it. But Kaaga Girls is beautiful. I remember it being green with nicely trimmed and shaped bushes, and felt like I was in the UK. And I mean, that should make sense because the UK, the British people actually built Kaaga Girls. And the principal that I had at the time, Mrs. Gladys Gishoga, she studied in Britain, so it makes sense that, you know, the whole school was modeled like that. It was beautiful, and I looked at the buildings and I was like, wow, this is nice. You know, it was really cold too. It's closer to the mountains, so the weather was a little different. You know, it was a little colder, and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get up early in the morning in this cold or go back to sleep late at night in this cold. Okay, so that was the first impression I had. But I also remember other kids being dropped off, and they all had the same look I had on my face. It's like a perplexed look. It was like I'm excited and scared at the same time, and like you're looking at your parents like, please don't leave me here. Oh my God, I gotta spend 3 months here every semester here, without going to school, without your parents helping you, without your siblings, without anybody. You gotta learn and make new friends. So So they dropped me off, and I'm like, Mom, as they driving away. Now, the other cool thing about boarding school is you have kids from all different backgrounds. So, you know, I've heard of schools like Kenya High, which I didn't go to, which are the A+ students and all that, and there are a lot of rich kids there. And my cousin went there, and she would tell me stories of kids getting dropped off in helicopters and stuff because their parents were like politicians or whatever. Well, you know, our school didn't have that. I mean, we had rich kids, but it wasn't to that extent, which was good actually. But if you were from this city, you were considered different or automatically rich. It didn't matter if you lived in the slums of Nairobi. If you came from Nairobi, it was like, wow, okay, this is a city girl. There's a code of behavior and ethics and everything they expect you to live by. They automatically expect you to be all like, hello, I'm from this city. You know, stuff like that. So it was cool because, okay, you get dropped off in a car, and then there's kids looking at you like, oh, your parents have a car? And I'm like, no, they're not rich, we're like middle class. But to some kids who were coming from a very rural area, that is like a lot, you know. So it was just looking at the different backgrounds and how kids from different backgrounds are able to come together and relate to each other and all that. But that was like the first impression, kids looking at you like, whoa, and you looking at them like, whoa. So it was funny. So they drive off, and I'm like, no, Mommy, Daddy, don't leave me here.
You and me has never part. My kid to her touch. Me and you must have one heart. My kid to her touch. Ain't no ocean, ain't no sea. I
And especially since I live over 4 hours away. But they were determined to leave me there. But then again, in their defense, it's not like the US where, you know, they were trying to get rid of me or anything. It was more like it's the norm in Kenya. The best schools are boarding schools. So, you know, it was part of life. And trust me, I like to tell myself that they were sad too, that they missed me. They probably had a party that day because one down, two to go. Is what they were thinking, you know? Mom and Dad, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Y'all gonna have to explain to me what that was like. But yeah, you know, at the time I wasn't thinking that they were missing me. At the time I was thinking that as soon as they drove off and they couldn't see me anymore, they're like, whoa, we got rid of her. One down, two to go. So they drive off, and I'm pulling my bags and I'm walking up the path, and this is a strange part, y'all. This is where boarding school starts to resemble prison a little bit. Excuse me for saying this if you went to boarding school and if you're from Kenya. But so there are girls lined up, and I'm guessing this was seniors, and they're taunting us while we're walking through, and they're just yelling stuff and trying to intimidate us.
I've never seen such a sorry looking heap of maggot shit in all my life.
And I'm about to start crying, and there's part of me going like, man up, man, don't cry, they gonna think you weak. So I'm just like looking down. I'm trying not to make any eye contact. I'm trying not to show anybody that I'm scared. I'm trying to be gangster, you know what I'm saying? I'm from Nairobi, yo. Y'all don't know I may be from like the tough part of Nairobi. Don't mess with me. But of course I didn't say that. I was just more like, walking by, and they're calling us names like freshman in Swahili, you know, and just all kinds of names that they call freshmen that are not cool names. And I mean freshmen like in high school, you know, there's names that they will call you or whatever, newbie, and they had all kind of pet names for first year students in high school. So this is almost like an initiation thing that they would do every year. And when new kids were coming in. But then as I'm thinking that I am going to die from this really nice, tall, light-skinned, beautiful girl that's like maybe 3 years older than me walks up to me and she's like, Lisa? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm thinking she's gonna be like, like I've been watching too many prison movies and I'm thinking it's about to get ugly. And then she goes, I'm gonna be your school mom, you know, and there's a name that we called it. Man, it's been so long. I don't even remember half this stuff. And I said, Mom. I mean, I didn't show it. I'm like, huh? But deep inside, I'm like, I get a mom? I'm safe. She seemed really kind and really nice. And so she's like, yeah, I'm supposed to show you around, take care of you until you know, get your footing and everything. And I'm like, well, thank God. And she just like walks me away from the taunting crowd. And she gives me a tour of the school, which is beautiful. Takes me to the dorm room, which your mom actually lived in the same dorm room as you did. And showed me, you know, my bed and where I was gonna be, and then I put my bags down, and you know, she just like, okay, so dinner is at such and such. I think it was at 7 or whatever. So feel free to you know, relax, change, whatever you gotta do. And you know, her job was to make sure I brought everything that I was supposed to bring. You wore a uniform every day, y'all. You didn't just wear whatever you wanted to wear. You had to bring so many rolls of tissue, and that was a list of things that you were supposed to bring. Now, for those of you who haven't been to boarding school, I know you're sitting there like, oh my God, that's terrible. It's not as bad as it sounds, you know. It's not as bad as it sounds. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so it's time to go to dinner. And I'll just walk in the room and they're looking at the newbies like, again, another similarity to prison. They've never seen you before. And then there's these girls that look like dudes that look really scary, like they'll beat you down any minute. And you don't want to make any eye contact with them. No. So you just like try to find friendly eye contact or somebody that looks new and scared like you so you can go sit down with them. And somehow, I don't know if this was an illusion or this was real, but I had this feeling that everybody was looking at me. Maybe it was all in my head. I don't know. But I gotta figure out where I get food and how I get food, and find out that you gotta line up. Is orange is the new black starting to kind of make sense here? so then you gotta, it's a deli style and you line up. And I remember years when, or times during my first year when the cool kids that were, you know, they were like the sorority, I don't know, sorority people, or they were like the kids that's been there for like 4 years or whatever. They're on their last year of high school. They get the big piece of bread. They get the big piece of this. They can cut the line. They can do whatever they want to. And when you're new, you just like, does this sound like a movie to you? You just like, they cut the line and you're just like, I'm not going to say anything.
Hey, girl. You gonna eat your cornbread?
Oh, Trevor. Don't say that to her.
You talking to me?
Yeah, I think he's talking to you.
No, not at all. I want you to have it.
I'm not gonna say anything. And there may be some of you, like my brother went to a tougher boarding school. It's all guys. He probably got cooler stories than I do. He probably got the best stories. I don't know. When I go to visit Kenya, I'm gonna have to do a vlog and have him describe his school to y'all, because that was interesting. So, oh my gosh, I feel bad saying this. I hope that nobody gets mad at me for saying this, but since I decided to tell this story, I committed to telling this story, so I might as well tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Nobody was tortured, I'm just saying. But my first experience with the food.
If you close your eyes, it almost feels like you're eating runny eggs.
You know, a bowl of snot.
Do you know what it really reminds me of? Tasty wheat. Did you ever eat tasty wheat?
Okay. So boarding schools, you know, they gotta go with a budget. So you don't sit there and eat chapati. And if you're from Kenya, you know what I mean. You know, the food that costs money and time to make, like chapati and ndengu and pilau. You don't eat this stuff in boarding school. If you're from America, you don't eat hamburgers. And if you do, it'll be McDonald's burger. You don't eat like pasta Alfredo and whatever you think the good food is. You don't eat filet mignon and all that stuff. You know, it'll be more like, I don't know, meatloaf and, well, you know, whatever. But it wasn't the worst food, but it wasn't the best food, you know. So I remember times when we would have like, we call it githeri, or we call it, you know, and you have, it's a mixture of beans and potatoes and corn and stuff like that. And you know, if you've ever heard of beetles, they're this, like, if you keep certain grains stored a certain way, if you're not careful, you'll have beetles or this, you know, insects that eat them. And I don't blame the cooks at school. I mean, if I was one of them, I don't have time to sit up there and sort through this whole thing. You gotta cook for what, 400 kids? I don't have time to do this. So yeah, you just, somebody's gonna have to bite into a beetle. And this is where I can picture my American friends going, what? But you know, when you're new, especially when you're new and you're from the city and you used to eat in a certain way, my first day I'm just like, okay, so this is like one of those movies you watch in the US and somebody is in prison and they're like looking at the gruel and they're going, or military, we'll compare it to military, and you're like, well, I guess this is what I'm going to be eating for the next 4 years, so I might as well get used to it. So first day in boarding school, you don't eat much. You're not hungry anyways, because they fed you on the way to school. Second day, you start to feel a little hungry. A third day, fourth day, you're like, oh, what the heck? So you just eat it. But by your second year, you're an expert, man. You're just picking out the beetles while you eat. And I remember it came to a point we would actually call it protein, you know. So if you found one of them, then you're like, hey, whatever, it's just extra protein, because not every meal had meat in it. You know, we're talking about where in Africa, there's a budget and everything. So you had meat on some of the meals, and then not all the meals had meat in it. So we would make fun. We'd say, this is protein. But I'll tell you guys something. It built my character. I won't lie. It really built my character, because whenever I have found myself in situations where I don't get what I want all the time, hey, you know, there's a silver lining in every situation. Like I said, I would never take it back. Being in that school was awesome. And, you know, most of the meals were really good. It's just certain grains. They couldn't pick everything out of it. My favorite meal of the day was breakfast. Yes, because we had porridge and you would also have bread. So you had to bring your own butter to school. We had a store you could buy butter, you know, to spread on the bread. And I think that's why I like bread so much. I looked forward to the morning time, and we'd have tea, the British style tea with cream and everything. It was awesome. So I really liked breakfast. I can't tell you I remember lunch and dinner so well. Yes, my favorite lunch meal was when we had ugali and sukuma wiki, and it's like a grit cake for Americans, and greens, you know. And I'm telling you, those cooks, they made amazing greens. So if we knew that it was ugali and sukuma wiki day, we were happy. Breakfast was always happy. We just wish we got more bread. But you feed so many kids, you gotta cut the bread into so many slices and stuff. You know, I love the tea. And we had 4 o'clock tea. Thank you, British people. Because at 4 o'clock every day we had tea. So if you were hungry from lunch and you couldn't wait till dinner, we had 4 o'clock tea. Again, you got a piece of bread and you got tea with cream. You guys, I know it sounds crazy, but that was exciting. That was a good time of the day. 4 o'clock. You get a break. You get to go get some tea and bread. You get to run around, do whatever you want to do before you go back to class and do prep. We had morning prep and we had evening prep, you know, before dinner. And then you have voluntary prep after dinner if you want to go study more. The other thing about boarding school was it was very structured, very structured. You know, you had a certain time you had to get up in the morning, as you had to be breakfast at a certain time or you miss it. Then you had to go back to the dorm, get ready, take a shower, do whatever you had to do. But did I mention, and I got cool stories for y'all. I'm going to make other videos for y'all with these stories. We had morning prep before breakfast. So you got up, you had to go to prep at 6 or something like that, and it's an hour prep, and then you go to breakfast, and then you go back to the dorm, you take a shower, and you do whatever you gotta do, get in your uniform. And then we had prep, which was really cool because our principal would, well, back then I didn't think it was cool, honestly. It was pretty terrifying because the principal herself, and this lady could be serious, y'all, I'm not kidding. She expected us to look good at all times, dress really well. And she knew, because she was a teenager at one point in her life, that sometimes we have holy socks. By holy, I don't mean holy socks. Oh, no, I mean holy socks with holes in them. So she knew, and sometimes she'd make us take our shoes off to make sure we didn't have holy socks. So you knew you couldn't get away with that. So you had to make sure that you had good socks. She checked our nails. You couldn't have long nails. You had to have clean cut nails. You know, just checked how we looked. She placed a lot of emphasis on cleanliness. And one of the things that she said every time that still rings in my head is, cleanliness, girls, is next to godliness. I still remember that to this day. Now, somebody in the U.S. is watching this going, oh my God, that sounds so much like a Catholic movie. Cleanliness, girls, is next to godliness. It wasn't that bad. Close, but not that bad. So the other lesson I took from school is cleanliness is next to godliness. So everywhere I go in life, I try to be the cleanest possible, the most presentable. So thank you, Principal Shoga. Thank you so much for that. Then we had, you know, her speeches during prep were fun. It was amazing to hear her talk during prep. She always came with a story or a metaphor, and she would just take us there. Like, she would start with a story, so you never knew where she was going with it. I can't wait to do a video about my Terminator story when I got in trouble in school. But she started with a story, and I didn't know she was talking about me, and I was about to be in big trouble. You know, so she would start with a story or a metaphor and would be sitting there like, huh? What's she talking about? And then she would go into whatever the issue was that had happened, you know. Don't want to make the video too long. I'm going to come back with stories about that. You know, we're going to do my high school adventure stories, or I don't know, my high school principal. I don't know what we're going to call it, but we're going to do a video about it. And I hope I don't get in trouble with her for making those videos, but I can't help it. I want to share these stories so badly with y'all. So anyway, so what else do I remember about high school? Then we had, you know, if you were Catholic, we had Catholic sessions where you could go and worship as a Catholic. If you were a Christian, you can go to Christian sessions. Christian Union is what we called it. You know, we also had Muslim people in our school. We had people from all over, and I loved how mixed it was. Then we had we had parties. She would hold parties. She was the coolest principal because she would say, I don't want you guys to sneak out of school and try to go to a party. So we're going to have parties here. She would invite a DJ, and the DJ would hold parties. So you see, people, high school, boarding school is not all about rules and all that stuff. No, you know, we would have fun times as well. Weekends, you got to choose what you want to do. You couldn't leave, but you had to choose what you want to do. Then we had outings, which she called outings, and that's when she would allow us to leave the school for so many hours, but you had to be back till a certain point. I have a story about that. The day that me and my friends were late, and the watchman, which is what we called our guards, would not let us in, and he had to write down our names, and that meant that we would be in trouble at morning prep. stay tuned for that story. So anyway, so we had outings, we had music festivals, which we got to go to other schools. We had sports, we got to go to other schools and play sports with them. So, you know, people who haven't been to boarding school, it's not as bad as you think. So that first couple of months, I was really homesick. I may have cried a little bit. I may have, you know, I may have, but it's part of it. And then you get used to it, you start making friends, and you actually start to enjoy school even more. And sometimes when I was at home for the holidays, I would miss my friends and I'd wonder what they were doing. And then coming back to school, like the 3rd and 4th year was fun, because then we ran the school. You know, I have stories about 4th year students in high school and the things they would do and say to us. And one of them is we're getting out of the van, coming from music festivals. We actually had a big bus, beautiful bus. I'm gonna put a picture of it on here. And as we're coming out of the bus, one of the senior students, I'm not gonna say your name, I still remember you. Oh man, she was scary. Everybody was scared of her. So she's standing outside the door, and as we're walking out of the bus, she's like, cool, cool, not cool, not cool. Oh, shady, just shady. You know, and she would tell all of us what she thought about us. It was funny, unless she picked you as one of the cool, not cool and shady people. But if she said cool, be like, oh, she said I was cool, because she was like one of the it kids, you know, in school. The ones that you want to like you and you want to hang out with them because you get perks and stuff. So it's just like American schools, only that you're in a boarding school. You can't run home and tell mama that you got bullied. You just gotta figure out how to deal with it yourself.
Oh, the whole thing. Did you see that?
Right! Come on, right!
Yeah, so after morning assembly, we would go to class, and then after we would have class for however long, and then we would have a break, a few minutes break, then we would go back to class, then we'd have lunch, and a lunch maybe was about an hour, then it'd go back to class, then school or class would be over at 4 o'clock. You'd go down for 4 o'clock tea, my favorite thing, and then you had the rest of the day to yourself. Then sometimes we'd have compulsory prep. You'd go back to prep. We called it prep, but it's when you go to class and you sit there and you study, and you have to study. I was a class prefect, which one day I'll tell y'all what that means. You know, we had people that were set to be leaders in certain area of their life, of the school. It could be class, it could be the dormitory. So I was class prefect, which was challenging sometimes, because at prep we had certain students, some of them are my friends on Facebook, that didn't want to study. They were so smart, they didn't want to study. So they'd be talking and cracking jokes in class. Not gonna mention names, but Sharon. So they'd be in class making jokes, and I would be the class prefect, and I'm like, because if I don't keep the class under control, then I get blamed for it by the teacher on duty or the principal. So I'd look back and be like, be quiet, everyone, stop it, you know. And I'm laughing at the jokes too, but I have to be stoic because I'm the class prefect, everybody. So that was fun. So we had prep, evening prep, and then after that, you know, you could go have dinner, and then after dinner you could do whatever you want to. If you're a nerd, you can go back to class and study. Sometimes I did that. Or hang out with your friends, or play, or run, do whatever you want to do. So see, people, it wasn't as bad as you think. Boarding school is not as bad as most people think. The best things about boarding school was I made the best friends. I learned a lot. I learned how to be independent, which is why it was easy for me to travel to the US by myself to come study and whatever. It built my character. I'm going to tell y'all more about my principal. My principal was amazing. She taught us a lot. Our teachers were amazing. They taught us a lot. But it built our character. It made us stronger. It made us feel like we could actually go into the world and face the world without our parents and without our family. So more stories to come about boarding school. the confession that I have to make that is not a very good confession is you start off as the freshman in high school and you get bullied or whatever, you get teased and all that. But by the time you are a sophomore, by the time you're on the last year of school, you're the person that's teasing the new kids and trying to toughen them up and all that stuff. So the cycle of life continues, people. So Kaaga Girls alumni here. If you're watching and you've been to Kaaga Girls, KG's the best. But thank you so much for watching this video. Got more stories to come. Look out for stories about school, principals, bullies, times when I got in trouble, and all that good stuff coming up. Well, I know that you're realizing that you really enjoyed this video, so I would like to encourage you to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell so that every time I post a video, you get notified right away so you don't miss out on the cool stories to come about so many situations in my life that I don't mind sharing with y'all if that'll brighten up your day. Thank you so much for watching, and ciao!